Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into a pretty massive, fascinating mystery. How exactly does one single person manage to master entirely unrelated, incredibly complex fields in what feels like record time? I mean, how do you go from writing software code to literally building rockets? Well, it turns out it's not just magic. We're going to break down a very specific, repeatable algorithm for accelerated learning, one that allows someone to absorb just massive amounts of complex information and completely outpace the competition. Okay, let's jump right into this. Picture this scenario. You're standing in a room with 5 of the absolute sharpest, best engineers at PayPal. One of them is Max Levchin. And they're staring at a computer screen, just incredibly frustrated, completely stuck on this unbelievably complex Oracle database problem. Suddenly, Elon Musk walks in. He asks what's going on, takes one look at the screen, instantly rattles off the solution, and then just casually walks out. Now at first, the engineers just kind of smile and laugh it off. Why? Because they know Musk is a Windows guy. He supposedly knows absolutely nothing about Oracle. But, out of sheer curiosity, they decide to test his solution anyway. They run the code, look at each other in total disbelief, and just say, oh shit, he is right. Fast forward a few years, SpaceX has just watched its 3rd rocket launch end in a massive failure. The company is teetering on the brink of collapse, and Musk is desperate for funding for a 4th attempt. So he reaches out to his old PayPal colleague, Peter Thiel. Thiel agrees to consider it, but he has one major condition. He says, before I invest in your company, I want to speak to the chief engineer. And Musk just simply replies, you're speaking to him. Thiel was absolutely stunned. He knew Musk as a software CEO, not a literal rocket scientist. He knew Musk had zero background in aerospace, but he quickly realized this wasn't some kind of joke. That lightning-fast learning, it wasn't a one-time fluke with an Oracle database. It was a repeatable algorithm. So, to figure out exactly how he pulls this off, we're going to use Walter Isaacson's framework from his biography on Musk. It breaks down into 5 distinct steps. Accelerate cycle time, learn from experts, operate with extreme urgency, simplify everything using the 80-20 rule, and question every single requirement. Let's get into it. All right, step 1, accelerate cycle time. Basically, fail and learn faster. Imagine a massive SpaceX rocket fuel tank sitting out on a launch pad. Out of nowhere, a lightning strike hits the tank directly, completely crushing and denting it inward. The SpaceX engineers took one look at it and told Musk, look, this has to be completely replaced, which would delay the launch by months. You see, they were used to the standard, highly cautious military aerospace method, testing materials under extreme hot and cold temperatures for days on end before doing absolutely anything. But Musk, he looked at them and gave this wild order. He said, grab some hammers, climb inside the tank, and literally hammer the dent back out. If you find any cracks, weld them. The engineers honestly thought he had lost his mind, but they did it. They hammered it out, welded the cracks, filled it with fuel, and guess what? It worked perfectly. They saved 4 entire months of delays with that one single crazy decision. The absolute core lesson you need to take away here is that to learn anything faster, you cannot let yourself be paralyzed by the fear of making a mistake. You've got to increase your cycle time. Build a small engine, throw it on a test stand, and see if it blows up. If it doesn't, put it in the rocket. Seriously, don't avoid mistakes. Make them rapidly, spot them immediately, and fix them fast. Moving right along to step 2, learn from the experts and extract their knowledge. Back when Musk first started dreaming about space, his initial goal was actually just to send a small, living plant to Mars, mostly just to inspire NASA to increase its budget. But to do that, he needed a rocket, so he flew all the way to Russia to try and buy an old one. Guys, it was a high-stakes, total disaster of a trip. Musk enthusiastically pitched his big vision for humanity becoming a multiplanetary species, and the Russian officials just looked at him like he was some naive internet millionaire. In fact, one official literally spat on him. Yeah, you heard that right. In a later meeting, when Musk finally asked for the price, they told him it was $18 million for just one rocket. They openly mocked him, telling him he simply didn't have enough money to play in their league. So he gets on the flight back to America, right? He's angry, but he's also incredibly motivated. He's sitting all alone in the front row, just furiously typing away on his laptop. Meanwhile, in the rows behind him, his employees, including aerospace expert Jim Cantrell, were whispering to each other, totally wondering what their eccentric boss was doing. Suddenly, Musk turns around, shows him his screen, and says, guys, we can build this rocket ourselves. It was this hyper-detailed spreadsheet. What his team didn't realize was that Musk had spent the entire last year just obsessively absorbing rocket science textbooks. And more importantly, he hired top industry experts like Cantrell and Tom Mueller, and he essentially extracted their brains. He made them his own personal tutors and consulted them on every single crucial decision. Step 3.
A maniacal sense of urgency. Action over ideas.
Listen, when you are learning or building something new, extreme immediate action is always going to beat sluggish, drawn-out planning. Here's a perfect example of this. Musk and his team were visiting a bankrupt rocket company's test site down in Texas. It had literally everything they needed. Test stands, huge water tanks, wide open spaces. Now, one of Musk's engineers got a little overly excited and started loudly praising how perfect the facility was right in front of the lone guard who was watching the site. Musk immediately aggressively hushed his own engineer, whispering at him to shut up so the guard wouldn't realize how incredibly valuable this location actually was to them.
Now, normally, a corporate team would go back home, spend weeks drafting a formal proposal, and maybe negotiate in a few days. Not Musk. Exhibiting that maniacal sense of urgency, he didn't wait a single minute. He secured a 1-year lease on the spot for just $45,000. Action is always greater than the idea itself.
All right, step 4, simplify everything. The classic 80-20 rule. Jump to 2017 at the Tesla battery factory. Production was facing these completely infuriating delays, and Musk demanded to know why it was taking so long. An engineer stepped up and explained that they used these small plastic caps to protect the battery pins during transit. Well, the problem, they kept running out of these little plastic caps, which was causing the entire assembly line to just grind to a halt. Musk looked at them and asked, why do we even need them in the first place? The engineer said it was to prevent the pins from bending. Musk immediately questioned the logic and just ordered them to remove the caps entirely. So they did. And surprisingly, the pins weren't getting damaged at all without them. By eliminating a totally useless step, he instantly unblocks the bottleneck and drastically sped up car production. This is a brilliant real-world application of the 80-20 rule, which basically dictates that 80% of your outcomes are going to come from just 20% of your inputs. Think about your own daily life for a second. You probably spend 80% of your time with just 20% of your friends. You use 20% of the apps on your phone 80% of the time, right? You wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time. If you really want to learn faster and work better, you have to identify your highly effective 20% and relentlessly simplify by cutting out the rest. Finally, step 5, question every single requirement. Assume it's wrong. Musk has this foundational mental model, and it's this. By default, assume every requirement you are handed is flat out wrong until it is definitively proven right. The crucial point here is captured perfectly in this next story. The SpaceX team needed a very specific valve for a rocket. A traditional aerospace supplier quoted them 1.5 crore rupees. To put that into perspective, that's roughly 15 million rupees. Musk took one look at the design and said, look, this just looks like a simple garage door opener. Tell the team to go build it for 1 lakh. Now, the team thought this was an impossible comparison. I mean, a rocket valve versus a garage opener? No way. But they questioned the requirement anyway, got to work, and they actually managed to modify a heavy-duty car wash valve for just 1 lakh rupees. And get this, that deeply discounted, heavily modified valve is still used in SpaceX rockets today, and it works perfectly. There was another instance where a supplier providing aluminum domes for the fuel tanks randomly decided to just triple the price halfway through production. Musk was completely outraged. He compared it to a house painter painting half your house and then trying to extort you for 3 times the money just to finish the job. So what was his response? We'll build them ourselves. Because he constantly relentlessly questions requirements and assumptions, SpaceX now actually builds 70% of its own parts entirely in-house. Just for comparison, even NASA relies primarily on outside contractors for their components. So by accelerating your cycle time, extracting knowledge straight from the experts, moving with terrifying urgency, simplifying ruthlessly, and questioning absolutely every single rule, you can decode complex systems way faster than anyone else. So I want to leave you with this thought as we wrap up this explainer. Look really closely at your own daily routines, your study habits, or your workflow. What mandatory requirement in your life is actually just a useless plastic battery cap waiting to be thrown away? Find it, eliminate it, and just watch how fast you start to move.